The 2020 F1 season is over, and I think we can all agree it was a little bit mental, but the season finale at Abu Dhabi was maybe not the best race ever, and any long-time viewers of F1 will know the Abu Dhabi race is almost always boring. Why is this? Why does this track get so much hate? And are there any things we could do to make it slightly better in the future? My name is Vader. You may have noticed this mic is not plugged into anything, and is there anything we can do to make Abu Dhabi not boring? So firstly, why don't people like Abu Dhabi? Well, anyone who's watched the race there will know the racing is just a bit meh. Every race there has turned out to be very predictable. Of the 11 times they've held a Grand Prix, 8 of them have been won by the person who comes on the first turn in first place, and the other 3, surprisingly, were won by the person who comes on turn 1 in second place. So basically, it's a Saturday race, but it's not the only track on the calendar where overtaking is very, very difficult. But I would argue that some of the other tracks that are hard to overtake on have some other things going for them, namely some interesting things to look at. When karting around Monaco, we've got all the crowds and the buildings nearby and the boats, the yachts and the marina. Abu Dhabi gives us blue. Lovely, lovely blue. Like the car park of a Costco. Now, it's not impossible to overtake around Abu Dhabi. You do get overtakes down the 2 back straights, but because there are 2 of them, we often see the overtakes on one just repeated on the second one, and they cancel each other out. That's fantastic, isn't it? And then the rest of the track, yeah, you're not overtaking anyone around there, mate. Abu Dhabi is a high downforce track, thanks to the fact that it has 400 corners. Because of this, teams run setups with more downforce, therefore creating more dirty air behind the car. More dirty air means the car behind cannot go as fast through a corner and cannot follow as closely. Therefore, you cannot get anywhere near the car in front to overtake it. We also couple that with the fact that Abu Dhabi has lots of very slow corners. You can't follow someone closely through a slow corner because if you do, you'll crash into the back of them. Therefore, corners like this have a tendency to spread cars apart, with cars doing lots of braking and going forwards. They naturally cannot stay close together. We should also remember that Formula 1 cars are finely tuned machines, and they're designed to basically only work when they have the correct amount of airflow going into their air intakes. If your car is sat behind another car, you will not be getting nice, cool, clean air, but instead hot, exhausty gas air. This is bad for your car, and therefore you can't do it for very long. And so in conclusion, high downforce and lots of stop, start, slow corners equals no overtaking. Get screwed. But the question for today is, can we do anything to improve that? Can we make any realistic changes to Yas Marina to make the racing more exciting? Maybe. No amount of track design can stop a Mercedes 1-2, but we can make the midfield battle slightly more interesting, so what can we do? For those of you who don't know the layout of Abu Dhabi, it looks like this. What I've done here is just taken loads and loads of quite detailed screenshots from Google Earth and stuck them all together in Photoshop to make a very nice detailed map of Yas Marina. Let's take a little tour of the track. Quite surprisingly, we start the lap on the start-finish straight here at the grid. We then immediately come to turn 1, which is just a corner. It's not the worst corner ever, but it's nothing exciting. It just sort of turns left. It has to do that because that's the sea. I know I didn't screenshot it, but trust me, that's the sea. Cars don't go in the sea very well, so we should probably turn left here. After turn 1, we then come to arguably the only good part of the track, the 2, 3, 4 S's complex. This is a sweeping left, right, left with a nice elevation change down from 2, up into 3, and back down into 4. It's dead flat in modern F1 cars, but it is pretty cool, and sometimes someone gets it wrong and spins off. Hey, what's not to like? And you better savour that, because what comes next is not quite so good. 6, 7, and 8. Nope. 5, 6, and 7. I can read numbers. Everyone loves to hate turn 5, 6, and 7 at Yas Marina. It's a chicane into a hairpin. A chicane on its own, not the end of the world. A hairpin on its own, not the end of the world. A chicane into a hairpin. Oh, Herman. People like to talk about flow of racing tracks. This is the opposite of flow. This is not flow. I know why they've done this, because if they didn't have the chicane, you'd come into the hairpin too fast, and there's a potential to slam a car into this grandstand, killing hundreds. That scenario is apparently not ideal, so we get this instead, which arguably is worse. Following the hairpin of 7, we then start the first of 2 massive straights. At the end of this first straight, we then reach another chicane of 8 and 9. It's just a left-right switch back to slow cars down, because we then have another straight. Yay! But guys, don't worry, this one's different because it's slightly curved. This straight is slightly shorter, but it's still very much long enough to make a pass with DRS, and so we often see passes double up and cancel each other out between the 2 straights. Once you've taken your position back onto the second DRS zone, you then reach turn 11. My least favourite thing ever. 11, 12, 13 is a sort of left-right-left double chicane sling, but 12 is far enough across that you can't nicely sling through it, and so it's a very, very awkward off-camber. This makes it literally impossible for two cars to be side by side following the second straight, because who would want to see two cars side by side? That's boring F1, obviously. Once we've filed nicely back into single file around turn 13, we have a quick burst of throttle, quick dab of the brakes around turn 14, and we can leave this monstrosity behind. Turns 15, 16 and 17 I actually quite like. It's a double apex right hand follow through into a sort of weird turned in braking zone for 17. It's quite cool. Cars go woo past the marina. Not that you can see it on TV, but I like it. Turn 17, also known as Paul Ricard Light, then brings us to the wonderful Yas Hotel, which is definitely not overcompensating for anything. People who pay to have a window view for the race at the Yas Hotel get to see the lovely view of cars braking into turn 18, taking a 90-degree right, squirting the throttle, taking a 90-degree right, and then promptly leaving their view. I'm not a huge fan of these two corners, but similar to turn 1, they serve a purpose so the cars don't drive into the hotel. After 19, we surprisingly get turns 20 and 21. Here, instead of two 90-degree corners, we have a 80-degree and a 100-degree corner. Whoa. Jokes aside, these two are actually kind of fine. 20 is a slightly interesting, slightly awkward right-hander. 21 again has a slightly awkward braking zone. Hard to get the most out of it, so nothing entirely wrong with these two. And after that, you're back to where you started. Well done, you. So that's the lap of Yas Marina as it stands today. You can see from an aerial view that it's not the biggest plot of land that this track is built in, and effectively what they've done is just drawn around the outside. There's not a whole lot of room to do too much different here, and if we were to scrap the track entirely, start drawing another one, I think it would turn out pretty similar because again, it basically just fills the space it's in. But that being said, nothing's impossible. There must be some tiny things we can do. Let's take a look. So as I said before, I believe some of the main issues of this track are the fact that it's a little bit stop-start, there's too many slow corners, stopping cars from getting too close together. On top of that, it's a track that requires a medium to high downforce setting, so if we could maybe do some stuff to reduce that, it might make it slightly more interesting. And then finally, there's just nothing to look at. When making any changes here, I tried to be largely realistic with regards to the safety standards that the FIA has in place for Formula 1 tracks. Obviously, I'm not a professional racetrack designer. I don't think many people in real life are professional racetrack designers, but I am not one. I do also know that the FIA publish all of their rules for Grade 1 track design, and while I know most of these, I haven't read it in its finest detail, so if some of these don't entirely match up, leave me alone. Starting from the start, I've left turn 1 alone because as I said, you can't really do much. If I change it too much, the cars will go into the sea. This is bad. And after turn 1, I've also left completely alone turns 2, 3 and 4. This is the only good thing we have, don't ruin this. So now we come to 5, 6 and 7. Now I've seen many people in many different places on the internet and in real life saying delete the chicane at turn 5. You cannot do this. Realistically, every turn needs an amount of runoff based on how fast the cars are entering it. If we didn't have a chicane before the hairpin here, the cars would be entering it faster and braking later, therefore meaning more runoff is needed in front of these grandstands. Because there are grandstands where these grandstands are, they can't be moved, and therefore there's not enough space for the runoff. Now it would be possible to completely redesign this complex and move the entire hairpin back as well, potentially having a single wider corner or just some other thing entirely. But I try to think what's the most interesting thing we could do with the most minor change here, and so I've just slightly reprofiled the chicane. I brought the tone in back ever so slightly, and I've made the entire section of track wider. What I'm thinking here is if we can get the corner entry speed of the chicane up slightly, it turns it into a bit more of a rapid sling left and right, hopefully a bit more interesting. And if we make it wider, we might see ever so slightly, every now and again, cars getting side by side or just some slight on-track action. It doesn't have to be much, but just more than 0, because that's what we have now. I know this doesn't look like a big change, but just changing the profile of these corners to improve the flow, up the average speed, all of these things I think would actually make quite a significant difference to the racing. After the hairpin, we have the first straight. There's not that much you can do here, is there? So we're going to leave that alone, but then we come to turns 8 and 9. Now I think there would be scope for reprofiling these again, the same way we did to 5 and 6, to maybe make the line of the corners slightly more interesting, but we don't want to use the same trick twice. What else can we do around here? Now, almost all of Abu Dhabi is dead flat. Turns 8 and 9, weirdly, aren't. The track takes a small dip on the first straight, about 200 or 300 yards back from turn 8, and then between the apexes of 8 and 9, there is actually a rise. But can we do anything to change the elevation here to make it even more interesting? Now when I look at this, it makes me reminisce of the Bahrain outer circuit race that we had earlier this season. What a race that was. And in particular, it makes me think of that chicane on the back section, the flowing elevation change, the rapid left-right, cars diving in, sparking out the back. Oh! So, can we look to do something similar to that here? I'm thinking rather than a flat entry into 8 and a rise between the two corners, why don't we dig out the apex of turn 8, make it a massive dip, and then you start to ascend somewhere between the corners, so it's much more of a flowing, undulating experience. Now they may not have hills in Abu Dhabi, but one thing they do have is money. And money can buy JCBs. JCBs can dig big holes in the floor and make your track slightly more interesting. Go for it, lads. So then we come to the second straight. Again, there's not all that much we can do to change this here. If we can't change the route of the track, and therefore the line of the race, can we at least do something to make this section slightly more interesting to look at? Why not build a massive tunnel? If you're going to have two back straights and the camera's going to be constantly flipping between the two of them to show the different overtakings happening, why not make them look completely different and have the second one be completely indoors? I'm picturing when the cars whiz through the tunnel at Monaco, you get the sound of the engines roaring, echoing down the tunnel, floodlights making the liveries all pop, but this time there's some actual overtaking happening in there as well. That would be sick. Build a little tunnel like this, start before the bridge, come down to the entrance of the support pits. You've got nothing to lose. If that's not big enough, why not just build it the whole way down the thing? I don't think we ever get to see overtaking in tunnels. This would be the one actual thing that Yas Marina does better than anyone else. Why would you not do this? Now I'm sure there's some safety regulations that make this difficult because apparently fire is bad when it's in a confined space, but sprinklers exist, you can make it work, come on. It's important to appreciate the value of visual cues when you're watching the race. In other tracks, there's different scenery at different parts of the track, so whenever the cameras swap, we immediately know what we're looking at. One of the big problems of Abu Dhabi is that every time the camera swaps, it looks exactly the same. So after you come out of my tunnel, we then come to, as I think you may have guessed, my suggestion for this part of the track is to delete it entirely. Just throw it in the sea. Throw it away, start again, give me instead this. Just give me one huge sweeping left-hander, reducing radius so it's not a constant swing to the left. That horrible brown grey stuff around the outside is gravel. I didn't think it would look this horrible, but oh well. And also you may be wondering why my Photoshop looks so lumpy on this part of the track. I don't know. I think if we were to build something like this, it would be kind of like Parabolica off Monza. A nice fast entry, fling to the left, reducing radius, but then playing with the line on the exit to keep speed up. This would hugely increase the average speed of this race and hopefully reduce the downforce package that teams are running. I'm also thinking it gives cars an opportunity to go side by side if they are together at the end of the second straight, which everyone likes to see. And I'm also thinking my big old tunnel that I just built is going to cool down the tyres massively, so we may get some big old lock-ups into this corner and see some people in the gravel. After we come around new Parabolica, it now means we're going around the old turns 15, 16, 17 much faster. I'm hoping this should liven up this part of the track, because it should mean that the braking into turn 17 is even harder and has to start even more back further when the cars are still turning around turn 16, making it slightly more tricky. A big lock-up, a big off at turn 17. If you pay to stay in that hotel, you want to see it, don't you? After you've come around this turn 17, I had to do something about the next two corners as well, because you can't just keep building 90 degrees. No one wants to see that. So I'm thinking instead, a single constant radius under the hotel. It's not fantastic. It's still not going to be great racing because you're still going to be coming out of 17 pretty slowly, so you're going to be accelerating around this thing, but again, it doesn't make it any worse, so why not give it a try? While the entry to this corner might be relatively slow after coming out of turn 17, I think by the end of it, cars should be going pretty much full yeet, pretty much full lock left. I think it could be kind of interesting, and with the exit to this corner being right up against a wall, we might have ourselves a little bit of a Canada Wall of Champions type scenario. You're in qualifying, you're trying to maximise this exit as much as possible, get as close to that wall as you can to get the best lap time you can, but oops, you get a bit too greedy, into the wall with you. And then we have the final two corners. Again, these are fine to start with, there's not that much space around them to change them, I'm just going to leave them alone. Now, I've made some changes to some of the corners to make this track hopefully a bit more interesting and a bit more flowing but I haven't changed the fact that this is still the Middle Eastern Paul Ricard. We've built a big tunnel on the back straight, which is a nice first step, but can we do anything else around here to give us something more to look at? And that got me thinking, are there any big landmarks nearby? Any distinctive buildings, which would be cool if we could see them from the race? Any enormous red indoor theme parks, for instance? No, there can't be. Oh wait, there's this one. When they built Yas Marina, they also built this freakishly oversized gazebo that is Ferrari World, but inexplicably, you can never see it from the race. Why would you build an enormous red tent if you didn't want people to look at it? That makes no sense. It's my idea. Down at the new mini Parabolica, why not just build a replica? Build a mini massive Ferrari World, stick it in the middle of the corner, something to look at in the background as the cars go past. And then I was thinking as well, we should do something about these sea of blue Costco car park corners that we have all around the track. I think it's actually possible to have very nice runoffs at tracks. I'm thinking of like the final turn of Austria, that massive Austrian flag going around the corner. It's pretty cool. Why not do something similar here? This track already actually has a massive UAE flag painted into the grass at turn 3. Why not put it somewhere you can see it? So I'm thinking we come down to the old turn 17, take away this nonsense, put in this. Hey! Again, it's just something to tell you where you are nice and quickly when the cameras swap around the track to follow different parts of the action. How much does paint cost, guys? You spent whatever, 20 billion pounds on the track? 50 quid down at B&Q. Go on. I would suggest that you change all of the runoffs at this track, but I just couldn't be bothered to do that in Photoshop, so I've only changed this one, but you get the idea. And with that, I'm starting to think we might have made a slightly interesting racetrack now. We only actually built 3 new corners, and really we just reprofiled 3 of the corner complexes. We built a big tunnel, we put a tent down, and I think we've massively improved this track. I believe with this new layout, the average speed should be higher, so hopefully teams can run a slightly lower downforce package. And I'm thinking also, with these 2 enormous continuous left-handers, the tyre wear should go up at this track, and therefore one-stop strategy is slightly harder, and the whole race just gets thrown a little bit wider open. Predictable was the main word to describe this track coming into this, and I think we've made some changes that make that slightly less the case. And so with that, I think my work here is done. I don't know how much Herman Tilke was paid to design this track, but whatever he charged you, F1 Media, guys, come on, listen. I'll take half. I'll be generous. 30%. For my redesign, that's all you have to pay me. 30%. You can have all these changes and a couple of little extra ones I didn't put in the video. Just hit me up in my DMs. I'll give you my PayPal. Couple $1 million. The track is yours. If you're watching this video and you're not from F1 Media, then I hope you enjoyed anyway. If you have any other ideas of how you could change Yas Marina to make it better, let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. And if you're new here, which you are because this channel is brand new, hit the subscribe button because I might make another one, I don't know. But until that day, I've been Vader. Stay safe out there and I'll see you guys later.